Okay, so I'm going to give a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for taking the time this Friday evening to spend some time with us. You are truly appreciated. Um, so this series is called Rooted in Real. This is our first episode to date. And our topic for today is going to be showing up as your full self without shrinking. I'm going to open the floor with a check-in. And the check-in is, what does showing up fully mean to you right now? And before you answer that, Sandra, give a short introduction about yourself, where you're from, let people know what you do, and you can go into answering that question.
Okay, great. Just so everyone knows, my name is Sandra, Coach Sandra. I am originally from Queens, New York. Yes, that same Queens from Coming to America. My neighborhood looked different though. I moved to Atlanta in my 20s. Man, it seems like a lifetime ago. But I've been here ever since, and I love it down here. And so I became a coach. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, a certified life coach, a performance and leadership coach, and mental health first aid certified. I'm also certified in integrative nutrition and QPR, which has to do with suicide prevention. So what I really enjoy doing is integrated coaching, because it's never just about that one thing, that one problem that you come with, or that challenge that you're facing. All of life is connected. We don't exist in vacuums, and neither do our challenges. So for me as a coach that is qualified to coach people in all of these areas, I like to look at the whole picture. Because how many of you know that when you're stressed out at work, that starts affecting your health, how you show up at home, how you care for yourself, and so many different, and it shows up in so many different ways. It shows up in your lab results. It shows up in everything. So likewise, that's the kind of approach that I take to coaching. Okay, so enough about me. I work full time at one of the country's largest health insurance companies, and I also work part time at a performance and leadership coaching company on the side. And I also have my own business, and I do hair a little bit on the side too. So I got a few side hustles, but that's important to have in this kind of economy. Okay, so tell me your question again, Eb, because I done hold on and got it.
I'm growing out my hair just so you can do it, okay?
Oh, I got just the loctician for you to get it started. Mo, I got another one for you. I'll take it from there. Yes, okay, go ahead.
So the question is, what does showing up fully mean to you right now? And while she's answering this question, everybody that's in the chat, you can go ahead and briefly type in, what does showing up fully mean to you right now? All right, I'll give it to you, Sandra.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to answer that question by kind of answering the inverse of the question. People shrink, right? This whole talk is about shrinking versus taking up space, right? So if you've ever been told that you're too much, too loud, too sensitive, too opinionated, too ambitious, doing the most, that's actually more about the capacity of the person that's making these comments about you than it is about you. Sometimes people want you to dim your light so that they feel more comfortable in your presence. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes people want you to dim your light so that they will feel more comfortable in your presence. Yes, Nicole, that part. But the challenge is that's not your assignment. Your assignment was never to make somebody else feel comfortable with themselves. That's right, Mahogany. Just being your true, authentic self without reservations. That's right. We are not shrinking. No shrinking over here. This is a no shrink zone, okay? um,
I'm the people in the back, okay?
that's right. This is a no shrink zone. Black women are not shrinking. We're not, okay? All right. So we are going to dim our lights. And if we have a problem with that, we're going to scroll past. We're going to walk on by. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. We're not gonna let people dim our lights. We're not doing that, okay? So if somebody is telling you that you're too much for who? Too much for them? You know, that's their problem. Okay, that's not your problem. So your assignment isn't to make people feel comfortable with you or themselves. Your assignment is to let your light shine before everybody. Okay, what did Viola Davis say? I love the way she says it. She said when she wakes up in the morning and her feet hits the floor, her assignment is not to betray herself. We betray ourselves when we shrink. We betray ourselves when we shrink, when we downplay our needs, when we minimize our voice, when we suppress our authentic expression, when we try to reduce our presence and make ourselves less visible. You know, this often happens through the fawn response. Okay. That's where the nervous system learns that being small and agreeable and non-threatening helps navigate relationships and meet basic human needs like safety, belonging, acceptance, and connection. The challenge is in this world, you know, we are so busy. We're running. Everybody's, I got to get mine, so you got to get yours. It doesn't leave a lot of room for connection and consideration and what other people are going through, right? So people learn to shrink themselves in environments where making themselves smaller helps them to get their needs met or helps them to avoid losing what they have. And this usually happens in situations where there's a power dynamic in place, right? Where being big feels risky and being small feels safer. So the environments where this learning occurs, it sometimes happens in families. It could be birth order. The younger ones are expected to act a certain way, you know, or it could be in peer groups where, nah, you're doing too much because you didn't ask me my opinion and I'm the star in this group, so you got to step back. You know how some people do. Okay. In schools, how many people have been bullied at school? I know we don't want to admit that as adults, but some people were bullied mercilessly at school, right? So they learn to shrink, even in your romantic relationships, domestic violence, anyone. You know, sometimes that comes up because people's ego, they're wanting you to shrink. Maybe Sandra's doing too much. Sandra needs to go sit down and just follow the herd because what Sandra's doing is making me uncomfortable with myself. She always involved in something. She always speaking on some panel, on invited to show up somewhere, and that's got me feeling some kind of way about myself. So I'm gonna flex on her. Okay. And then if I stay and I get slapped around, you know, and then I learn, okay, well, I need to not do so much. I need to because then if I do keep doing this, I'm gonna get hurt. I gotta be safe. I've got to shrink. Okay. So what are we doing when we do that? And I understand we might be trying to stay safe. However, we got to plan an exit strategy so we can get out of that situation, right? So these are ways that people don't necessarily choose to shrink. They shrink because they are trying to get their basic needs met. There's a power dynamic in place. It might be somebody bigger or stronger than you or more powerful socially. And so, what the nervous system essentially learns through these experiences is that when I'm small, things go better for me. When I take up space, there are consequences, right? So over time, this becomes automatic rather than a conscious choice.
Got it. Okay. So let's move on to what shrinking actually looks like. Okay.
Okay.
How to, 1 second.
Well, while you're doing that, Eb, I'm going to address attachment style. How about that? Give you a little more time. Okay?
Oh no, I'm ready.
You
Here.
ready? All right.
So it says, how do you personally shrink yourself and how did you learn to do that?
Okay. So we were talking a little bit about shrinking, right? And what that looks like and how people learn to shrink. And what it feels like, what it looks like to other people is, you know, I might ask you, hey, Eb, where you want to go out for dinner? You might say, oh, I'm good. I'm flexible. I don't have any, wherever you want to go is fine with me. Because maybe the last few times you picked some place to go, I had a problem with it each time. You know, that's one way we shrink. We kind of minimize our voice or our opinions. We don't share as much as we would if we felt secure in the relationship. That if we shared how we felt, we would be heard. Our opinion would be valued. We would feel respected, right? So that's one way people shrink by downplaying their needs and shrinking their voice. It might be you work at a job. Give you another example, right? I love your hair, Eb. The platinum cut, you be killing it, right? Say one day you wanted to color your hair. One day you wanted to color your hair. Oh, she doing too much. That's unprofessional. That's not the kind of colors that we wear here or whatever. The Eb I know would be like, oh, you got a problem with my hair? That sounds like a personal problem to me. Because I'm going to wear my hair however I want to wear my hair. That's a secure person, okay? Somebody who's not secure might be like, oh, I'm sorry. They're apologetic. Those people who are always apologizing. And you say, how are you doing today? Oh, I had a really bad day. Oh, I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? Notice how many times you say you're sorry in a day. That might let you know if you're shrinking, okay? So there's lots of different ways that we shrink. We fawn. We make ourselves agreeable and not threatening so that we can be accepted. And in our bodies, that can feel like, for me, I call it vibes. I actually call it spidey senses. I'm from Queens, New York, so I can claim Spider-Man, right? I have spidey senses. I can't shoot webs, but there are times when I'm feeling a little bit disconnected from my lived experience and maybe in that kind of automatic response, and I can feel like tingling in my hands. It's almost like an alarm system that my body is telling me, wait a minute, you need to pull this car over. There's a red light on the dashboard. We need to figure out what's going on before we wreck and turn this thing upside down and flip upside down in a ditch. We got to pay attention to the signals that our bodies are telling us. It might show up as a stomach ache or nausea. It might show up as tightness in the chest. It might show up as not standing up as straight, not looking people in the eye, kind of like almost physically shrinking to match how you're feeling kind of emotionally in that moment. So yeah, it can show up in a lot of different ways. And the challenge is when we start to, it almost becomes an automatic response. And we keep shrinking and we keep shrinking and we keep shrinking. And it's not an intentional choice that provides us with safety or getting our needs met in that moment. It becomes something where you start to believe that you're smaller. You start to believe that you don't deserve to be heard. You start to believe that maybe you shouldn't say anything. Maybe you shouldn't shoot your shot. Maybe you shouldn't share that idea. Maybe you shouldn't try that thing. Who wants to hear from me anyway? That's when it's really dangerous. Yes, Mo said, yes, my system feels off when I'm shrinking. Absolutely. Your body will tell you. It's just that sometimes we get disconnected from our lived experience. Why? Because especially as Black people, our ancestors were not afforded many times the opportunity to check in with their body, to stop and breathe, to see, put the hand on their chest and be present. Take a deep breath, check and see how we feel. No, we had to push through. Why? Because the whip was coming if we didn't, right? So these are systems and patterns of behavior, things that you might have heard your great grandma say, that she taught your grandma, that she taught your mom, and they taught you. And not only that, but that there is a thing called post-traumatic slave syndrome. Read it. Dr. Joy, I forget her last name at the moment. It's not on the tip of my tongue. I'm 55. That happens sometimes, okay? However, Dr. Joy DeGroy, I think her name is. But these traumas get passed down from generation to generation, okay? So how do you think somebody that was an enslaved African, how do you think they, the ways that they shrink? 55 right here, Nicole. You need to hear my knees in the morning. Sound like Rice Krispies, but I digress. Okay. So, I mean, these are the ways. This is where it shows up. It shows up in the things that our elders have said. It shows up in the thing that our friend groups are saying. You need to go sit down somewhere, girl. You got a good job. What you talking about? You got a good government job. How many people had such good government jobs and don't have them now? Maybe what would have happened if they started their own company, but somebody told them not to because they had a good government job. Ride that out. Until when? So it's like shrinking is inherent, I think, in the African American experience, because the country that we live in right now, it tries to make us shrink all the time, whether we are at work, whether we are out and about. We could be walking in the park frolicking, flying a kite, jogging, running. What are you doing? Somebody might say something that they might think that our presence there threatens them and makes them uncomfortable. Why? Because they want us to shrink. But what did Viola Davis say? Our assignment is, well, she didn't say this part. I'm saying this part. Our assignment is not to make other people comfortable. Our assignment is to show up as our full selves. If they need to get comfortable, they need to call Coach Sandra, and I can teach them how to get comfortable with themselves, okay? I can, Eb can put my contact information, not my number, but my website in the chat. But no, we are not projecting our insecurities and our low self-esteem and our lowest self-worth, because that's what it is, boo-boo. When somebody is telling you that you're doing too much, they need to go get therapy. They need to go get a coach. They need to understand, to study themselves and understand why somebody showing up as their full self makes them so uncomfortable. They need to understand what, okay, all right, mahogany is church today, okay? So they need to understand why, what happened to them? Who hurt them? Why do they feel like they need to do this to other people, to shrink them and make them feel small and to control them to the degree where they can't even have quality of life for themselves, just so that I can stand up taller if I have my foot on your neck. That's terribly problematic. And we're not doing that. We are not doing that. So no shrinking over here, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so I want to step in here for a second. And it's funny, I was talking to Nicole earlier, and I'm pretty sure she's going to remember this. I told her, I said, I don't remember the last time I've shrunk, right? Or I don't think I have. And now that you've broken down the ways that you shrink in spaces, I retract that statement. I feel like I've been doing it almost every day, trying to make other people feel comfortable. So by you breaking all that down, I feel seen. I feel 100% seen. I feel naked. Like you just exposed everything. So now I gotta go back and recalibrate. And like, hold up, wait a minute. I, the shrinking needs to stop.
Yes, but sometimes, like you said, we're not even conscious of the ways that we're shrinking, right, Nicole? Ouch moments. I call them brick in the face moments, right? It's like God will allow us to get but so comfortable, and then He will allow us to get uncomfortable, and He will give us these brick in the face moments. Say, okay, I know you thought that was best. You thought that was good, but I'm calling you to my best for you. You know, so yeah, we are going to stop that shrinking. We are going to stop all the shrinking because that's not what our assignment is.
Okay, so tell me for yourself, when did you stop shrinking?
Okay, that's I was born into a role of being shrunk. Let's address that. Um, I was paying a mortgage, pushed out two babies, paying daycare, changing diapers, had a big girl job, been through stuff, holding on to my big girl panties to get through it, and still being introduced as the baby of the family. How you think that made me feel? It made me feel smaller, you know? When my older sisters would say, oh, she's spoiled. Spoiled where? I ain't never been spoiled, you know? And don't get me wrong, I came from a very loving family. There was no trauma there. The only thing that I had that I was concerned about, and I wrote about this on my Substack page called Thrive Fully, about the weight of us, because my parents are Caribbean immigrants and they were old enough to be my grandparents. I was one of those, oops, we're not shooting blanks, the machine still works babies. I wasn't planned, right? So by the time I was born, my parents were older than most of my friends' grandparents. And my father almost passed away from a heart attack when I was 7 years old. And my mother had to take on so much. And I was always wondering, well, goodness, what is going to happen to us? Who's going to take care of us if something happens to them? Right? So I started shrinking. I started trying to make things easier for them, to preserve them, to take good care of them, thinking that I could make them live longer if I made their lives easier, because I saw how much they were going through. And I had a level of awareness as a child, even single digit in age, that my other siblings just didn't have. They was probably playing double dutch and hanging out with friends, and I'm not obsessing, but concerned about how we were going to get our basic needs met. Who was going to take care of us? What was going to happen to them? Because us was all we knew, right? So in that way, I was shrinking. You know, I wasn't showing up as a child, free, frolicking, you know, carefree, not worrying about things. I was trying to make their lives and their existence easier, because of being concerned about having my basic human needs met. So as life would have it, you know, I moved away. And I had tremendous guilt in moving away. I moved from New York to Atlanta in my early 20s when my daughter was just 1 year old. And it was incredibly challenging for me to be away from my parents when their health started failing, because I felt like that was my responsibility to stand in that gap and to be there. And, so it's like, it's complicated. It shows up differently for different people. But I got to a point where I realized that I can only do what I can do. My sisters were still in New York. I came up and helped carry the load. I took a leave of absence when necessary to help take care of my mom towards the end. I pulled my daughter out of her school here in Georgia and enrolled her in the same elementary school I attended for a little while. And so it shows up in different ways, but in other examples, it might be not speaking up at work, or somebody keeps stealing your ideas at work when you speak up at meetings, or people are speaking over you, and then you learn to stop speaking, but we're never stuck. We've always got an option. The option is, okay, well, this isn't the place for me. They're trying to make me small. They're trying to steal my ideas. They're not giving me credit for my work. They're profiting. They are still trying to reap the fruit of my labor, of my ideas. So I am going to take the option and I'm going to leave. If we find ourselves in relationships where we're not being treated well, maybe somebody made some promises to you and they're not showing up in that way, so it might be time for you to, take matters into your own hands and be like, you know what? I don't think I want to ride with you no more. This isn't what I signed up for. I know I was created for greater things than this, because if we keep shrinking, it's that realization that if I keep shrinking, it's soul killing. What are you getting? What are you missing out on? What is it doing to you? Where there's not even enough space for you to be who you are, to show up as your full self. That is not only soul killing, it's dangerous because you can get stuck there like quicksand. And it's a very sinking feeling. It's a very sinking feeling. I hope I answered your question, Ebony. I tend to ramble a bit.
Well, you definitely answered my question. So, okay, let's move forward here. Okay, so my next question for you is, what helps you stay rooted in who you are when the world tries to make you smaller?
Oh, that's my favorite thing. Sometimes we need to, because the world, Kamala Harris said her mother used to tell her, when they try to tell you who you are, you tell them who you are, you know? And that's so true. That's so powerful. And they can be anybody. It could be the person you share your bed with. It could be your friends who are trying to make you small. It could be your family who wants to see you do well, but not better than them. It could be that friend group that doesn't appreciate you getting so much light, who wants you to remember who you are and keeps making these jokes that those frenemies that a lot of people like to keep. Um, so it's important for us to stay close to people who provide space for us to show up as our full selves. Okay, Mahogany? We got to show up as our full selves. Okay, anything less is soul killing. So I think it's Caroline Wanga, right? She was the CEO of I don't know if she's the CEO, but she's with Essence Magazine now. And if you look at her, she's an amazing, creative, artistic Black woman. And man, I love the way she shows up in a space and just owns it, right? She's not trying to assimilate at all. She shows up with her creative hairstyles, her amazing makeup, her awe-inspiring outfits, and she sits down and she looks up and she owns the space. She's not walking in all timid, like, oh, I hope this isn't too much pattern for this meeting, or maybe this lipstick is a little too bright, or maybe I should have picked my other glasses, or, trying to hide. No, she pulls her shoulders back. She takes up space. She spreads out and she owns the damn thing. That's how we've got to show up. And if that makes somebody uncomfortable, oh well. Oh, well. So, how we ground ourselves is we go to therapy if we need to go to therapy. We call Coach Sandra and schedule an appointment, or somebody else. We talk to our friends who make space for us, who are honest with us, our family who loves us and allows us to show up as our full selves. Um, Coach Sandra, absolutely mahogany. So it's important that we exercise practices of being kind to ourselves, okay? Believing ourselves. Um, if you are feeling something in your spirit or your mind, I always say when somebody's trying to tell you something, or you get a vibe or a feeling, pay attention to it. Sometimes it's your central nervous system telling you that this situation doesn't feel right, or something is off here. Instead of pushing through like we talked about before, we got to stop and check in. If there's a light coming up on the dashboard, are you going to just keep driving down the road and throw some rods and risk blowing up your engine, or are you going to pull the car over, look at the dash, look at the manual, pop the hood, and figure out what's going on before you mess something up or cause irreparable damage? So, number one, we are going to start checking in with ourselves and honoring how we feel. But we got to pay attention to how we feel before we can honor it, right? We're going to only be around people who honor our boundaries. And our number one boundary is what? Our number one boundary is to have enough space to be who we are. If they keep trying to close that space and make us smaller and smaller, that's not a safe person for us. Okay. The other thing that we need to do is we need to invest in coaching or therapy, spending time with people who love us and care about us, and also grounding ourselves, learning to enjoy our own company, meditation, prayer, yoga, spending time in nature. Find out what are the things that you enjoy doing that help to kind of ground and stabilize your central nervous system. It's so incredibly important, especially in the times that we're living in. We're bombarded with information. We're bombarded with things that are trying to make us do what? To shrink, to acquiesce, to adapt to this different kind of behavior that's completely foreign than what we've been accustomed to our whole lives. It's scary AF. It is. But we're not shrinking. We're not shrinking because there's a time when we shrink because we think it'll keep us safe. But after a while, you shrink and you shrink and you shrink. And they just keep making the space smaller and smaller and smaller. And what are you left with? What are you left with? It's soul killing. It's intolerable. It's not sustainable.
I just love you.
I love you, Web.
So here's a little curveball.
Mm-hmm.
If you could offer a permission slip to everyone watching right now, what would that permission slip be? Like, what would you be giving them permission to do?
Permission to rest. Permission to rest. Permission to breathe. Permission to disconnect from the news, to disconnect from social media, to give yourself some time and space to be out in nature, to be off of screens, to check in with yourself and see how you feel. permission to not answer the phone for a day, to practice. And that's what I mean by self-care. It's not, trips to Bali with the golden or fuchsia dress blowing in the wind. It's not the passport brooch trips. That's really not what self-care is. Self-care is caring for yourself in a sustainable way on a day-to-day basis. That's self-care. It is paying attention to your lived experience. It is not dismissing how you feel, not continually pushing through. It is taking the time to minister to yourself, to love on yourself, to give yourself the rest and the care you deserve. It's studying yourself so you understand why you do the things you do, figuring out the patterns of the behavior, and then courageously and vulnerably addressing those issues and concerns so that you feel more in control of yourself and your behavior, and you show up in a way where you can pull your shoulders back and look people in the eye and look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, and not be having those conversations in front of the mirror. Well, I should have said, what I'm gonna say next time. No, you're gonna say that today. So that is what self-care is. It's positive affirmations. It's listening to podcasts and reading books. We need to read, people. They ban books for a reason. If you don't want to read the words in the page, your hand's too tired, get an audio book. Edify yourself. Hang around people that are doing things, that are uplifting, that make space for you, not telling you to go sit down somewhere, okay? That's what I'm giving you permission to do today. That's your permission slip.
Thank you. Thank you for that permission. Okay. So I am going to allow you to speak on attachment styles. And then after you speak on attachment styles, if anyone wants to come up, the floor will be open for you to come up and speak on the topic.
All right. Thank you, Eb. All right. So attachment styles definitely play into shrinking versus taking up space, for the same reason that we were talking about before. Attachment style significantly influences when people shrink because it is developed in early life and sometimes after that, because attachment styles aren't necessarily set in concrete. They can change as you change, right? Your level of self-awareness changes. But we develop in early life attachment styles for getting our needs met in relationships, right? I don't know if you guys have seen the experiment where there's a baby in the room and the mother leaves, and they're studying the baby to see how the baby reacts when the mother comes back. It's fascinating. You can find it on YouTube. But as adults, if we haven't studied ourselves, these patterns that we learn in childhood can persist even when the original circumstances have changed, which is why investing in coaching or therapy can help you to understand and recognize when and why you shrink. But there's anxious attachment and shrinking, right? So people that learn that love, and I'm looking at my notes here because I can't remember all this. I'm 55, y'all. People that learn that love and connection were inconsistent and sometimes available or unavailable, they sometimes develop anxious attachment. They may shrink by constantly editing themselves to maintain closeness, becoming hyper attuned and vigilant, paying attention to others' needs while suppressing their own, or morphing into whatever they think will keep someone engaged. The fear of abandonment can drive them to make themselves endlessly accommodating and palatable. Imagine how soul killing that is for that person, but they're caught up in this behavior pattern. Okay. Avoidant attachment and shrinking. People with avoidant attachment learned that depending on others wasn't safe or reliable. So they might shrink their emotional needs, minimize vulnerability, or make themselves smaller in terms of what they ask for or expect from others. They've learned to need less, to want less, and to show less as a way to protect themselves from disappointment or rejection. How many avoidant or anxious people we have in the crowd? Don't y'all all speak up at one time? I know this is vulnerable stuff. We don't want to discuss, half the time we don't want to admit this to ourselves. And this is why it's so important to have a coach or a therapist that can hold that safe, judgment-free space for you. Because you might not feel comfortable talking to your friends or your family about it. You may not even feel comfortable saying it aloud to yourself. Many of you are probably having aha moments right now, or oh wow, that makes sense. I'm hearing this. See, Ayana's saying that now that you define it that way, I think I'm a hybrid. I know I'm a hybrid. I'm a hot mess over here. I show up secure one day. I explained to y'all what my childhood was like. So that's a little bit of anxious, right? And I'm quick to cut people off. It's I don't know if Monique is still on the phone or in the live, but I'm quick to say, I think we're done here. Because if I start seeing stuff going sideways and you're not showing up like you said you were going to show up, and I don't see you putting any effort in, what I need you for? I'm good. I'm all right. So, but I got a therapist. I got a coach and I got a therapist. Okay, so disorganized attachment and shrinking shows up this way. People with disorganized attachment experienced caregivers, and of course this isn't set in stone, who were both the source of comfort and the source of threat. This creates, can't you imagine, confusion, right? I don't know whether you're gonna leave or stay. I don't know what we're doing right now. Which personality am I dealing with, right? So this creates confusion about when to move forward in connection and when to protect oneself. So shrinking might look erratic, sometimes disappearing entirely. I'm out of here. Deuces. I think we're done here, or sometimes over accommodating because I don't want them to leave, so let me this is when, ladies and gents, you're walking on eggshells in the relationship. Okay, that's what that looks like. And you're often struggling to find a consistent way of being in relationships. That's disorganized attachment and shrinking. And finally, this is where we want to be, securely attached. So people with secure attachment generally learn that their needs mattered and their relationships could handle fullness. So they're less likely to chronically shrink because they've internalized that being themselves doesn't threaten connection. So that is when you got a real ride or die, where you are considerate to each other. You don't pop off at each other. There's no physical abuse or any other kind of abuse. Sure, we're going to get on each other's nerves sometimes. That's human nature, right? You're in close quarters. You're spending a lot of time together. But how do you work through your challenges? Nobody's threatening to leave. That they took their vows seriously, or the commitment that you guys made to each other. You can have confidence in that. That's your person. These people are securely attached. Okay. However, even securely attached people can develop shrinking patterns in specific contexts where the dynamics demand it. So this is kind of how the attachment styles can show up sometimes due to trying to get our needs met or what we learned in childhood in shrinking versus taking up space. Make sense?
Makes sense to me. All right, so I am going to open up the floor. If anyone would like to come up, just drop something in the comments and I will let you up, or just send a request. In the meantime, I want to thank Sandra for joining us. You are amazing, girl.
Oh, Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. I just love to spread love and I like to enlighten people because when I learned a lot of this stuff, it blew my mind. But not only that, it helped me to better understand myself. Thank you, Mahogany. I appreciate that. I appreciate you too, Ayana. Yes, it's so important for us for there to not always be a paywall in front of information sharing. It's important to provide value. It's important for people to understand themselves, to be able to grow and to learn. Each one teach one is really important. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. I thought Nicole would be raising her hand. Is Nicole still in here?
Nicole, where you at, girl? You're not shrinking on us, are you? She probably done put the phone down and did something.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think because she's not blowing up the chat now. Uh-huh. I just knew she was gonna have some input. But yeah, so when I think about me shrinking, I'm just I am so glad that we covered this topic because uh, I got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
I
I'm
think I might
available.
be going
I'm
through.
available to you, girl. I'm here,
That's
L.
what, that's what I was just about to say. We need to do some sessions.
I'm just saying, I'm
Because the way
available.
I've been over here shrinking.
It's,
Oh my word.
it's all right though. It's all right. Because I'm gonna tell you what my mother used to always say to me: when you know better, you do better. You don't beat yourself up. You don't shame yourself. You don't blame yourself. You just pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you try again. That's Aaliyah. But my mother used to say, at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. That's Aaliyah. But what my mama used to say was, when you know better, you do better.
Right. Oh, now I know better. I can't wait to do better.
Hey. So,
Ayana said, are there any black self-help or wellness books that you can recommend?
oh, black owned books, black written books. All right, let me think about that. Ayana, I might DM you that or send it to Eb. And you know what?
Well, actually,
Wait, wait,
Ayana.
wait, 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 wait. I got it right here.
Okay, well, while she's looking for that, Ayana, if you DM me, so BWA has a book club, and we only read Black female authors, and a lot of them are self-help or wellness books. So if you DM me, I will send you the link to the book club group chat. Oh, what we got here?
All right, so this is Homecoming by Dr. Tima Bryant. And the subtitle is Overcome Fear and Trauma to Reclaim Your Whole Authentic Self. I absolutely love Dr. Tima Bryant. She was the president of the American Psychology Association. She is the sister of Dr. Jamal Bryant, Pastor Jamal Bryant here in Atlanta, who called for the boycott against Target. She has an amazing, amazing podcast. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But just look up her name. It's TheMaBryant. And this is actually one